All right, thank you guys. We have a few people that couldn't be with us today, so we wanted to record. So thank you all for joining. I think I've met most of you on this call. My name is Leslie Banis, Director of Programs here at the Community Foundation. I get to work closely with our nonprofits here, as well as our agency fund holders. And then also for those of you, I'm sure some of you have gotten emails, but I think she just turned her camera off, but wanted to give a shout out to Nancy Parks from the Community Foundation who's on this call. You'll hear from Nancy anytime it regards a grant that you receive or, from the Community Foundation, or you need to receive funding, or she needs to follow up on your ACH. And so all those details, I wanted to put a face to her name for many of you that probably have met Nancy through email. So thank you, Nancy. So I want to start off with a review of 2021 for what happened last year with the Community Foundation, and then we'll give some resources and talk about what's coming up in the future. So we called last year the year of the planned gifts. So the Community Foundation did a significant amount of planned giving last year with our donors. So in 2021, totaled more than 4.6 million in documented planned giving, which brings our total to just at 20 million in documented planned gifts of the Community Foundation. So that's great news for our community and for our nonprofits, knowing that the Community Foundation is here and here for the future as well. Last year, we facilitated a rather large gift of real estate here in our community. That real estate gift helped, was over in High Springs, and we were able to liquidate that asset for the donor and then gift to their alma mater. So that was a great experience in navigating the gifts of real estate. I know many of you have asked questions or done that yourself, and so it was not an easy feat, and so we're excited to have facilitated that. Gifts of securities and RMDs have remained very popular at the Community Foundation. We facilitated a significant number of those last year as well. So we had 6.3 million in contributions last year over the pandemic. So you'll see that here, as well as gave away 4.3 million in grants last year in 2021. So assets under management, we reached 25 million last year. And so Ben's going to be talking more about what the investment strategies look like for the portion that is invested, but a total right now, our assets are at 25 million. We did last year have we announced this last year. We had our first agency fund to reach the $1 million mark. So that was Alachua Conservation Trust. They established their agency fund, which is a nonprofit fund, in 2007. They had just under $500,000 when they started their fund. And over the year, over the course of the next 15 years or so, 12 years, they were able to grow their endowment fund to reach $1 million. We recognized them at our investors breakfast last year, as well as at our legacy awards in the fall. So special Women's Giving Circle, over the course of starting in the fall and going through the spring, they are celebrating their 15th anniversary in our community. So our Women's Giving Circle has donated and granted out just over 1.1 million in our community, and they are right now in the middle of accepting grants for their cycle this year. That grant application is on our website if your organization's interested in applying, and they will be announcing that come May. They are celebrating 15 years. Over 300 women have participated in this collective giving model since it started. So last year, we successfully launched our nonprofit loan fund. So established with $50,000, the nonprofit loan fund is the first of its kind that we've seen here in our community, and it allows nonprofits to access funds for repayable loans. So the loans are repaid back, funds become available for use right away, and helps just continually create this cycle of funds for nonprofits, particularly applying for reimbursable grants in our community to really help grants that they may not be able to access unless they had upfront money. So we've worked with several right now. You see Peaceful Pass there. We've worked with them on our loan fund, as well as others in the community. And then right now we do have donors who love this idea. It really leverages additional dollars in our community. And we have about an $800,000 commitment to this fund over the next few years. So it really allows more nonprofits to secure those reimbursable grants in our community to get this, to be able to have access to this loan fund. We also had our legacy awards in the fall. Many of you were there. We actually established a new award this year. We had the Jolton Canton Community Champion Award announced this year. You'll see some of her family and friends as we recognized her at our legacy awards and the work she did in the swag community. And then at the Legacy Awards this year, we also launched our Racial Equity Fund with a $10,000 match. And we're going to talk more about our Racial Equity Fund, but that $10,000 match that we announced at Legacy Awards was matched within 2 weeks. And so that was a quick turnaround, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But we also had our Amazing Give last year. We switched it up a little bit, and we had our Workday edition where we did the Amazing Give from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we only did it for 12 hours. And we're still able to have a great day. We raised just over 1.2 million in that 12 hours. And so looking ahead, we will be doing that again with the same 12 hours with just at about 100 nonprofits participating. And that was our 6th year. So coming up will be our 7th. One thing we did last year was in the midst of COVID and the pandemic, and really highlighting some of the areas in our community that we maybe had noticed before. We saw that there was a really big need for our rural providers to be connected to resources here in our community. And so we held a convening with all the rural providers, and we were able to have about 35 of them together and really start connecting them with each other and connecting them with resources that they may need in our community. We were able to catalog those and share contacts and connections with our rural providers, helping connect them. We were able to connect them with resources, with the Children's Trust, with the county, with the city, with the school board, and just and even with each other. So our agency services, last year we were provided 15 individual trainings for nonprofits in our communities. These are specific for the needs of that particular agency. You'll see some photos here of Barzella doing some of those outreach and some of that agency service training in our community, whether it be board training or fundraising training, or how to build your audience or how to fundraise. So you'll see some of that here. We worked with some of them listed: Meridian, K Museum, the Child Center at SWAG, 100 Black Men of Gainesville, and the Mirror and Image Leadership Academy. We also continued our board academy. So last year we reached the 300 mark, where we have trained more than 300 community members in what it means to be a board member and best practices in board leadership. We did launch the Board Academy 2.0. And we, again, we launched a board chair roundtable, which stemmed from our board academy, and just really connecting board chairs in our community once a quarter. And then, of course, we continued on with our Center for Nonprofit Excellence. We have 60 members, which was our highest ever last year, and continuing that on into this year. Again, many of you are on our Philanthropy Hub. So we have about 160 nonprofit organizations on our community's first online searchable database of nonprofits in our community. And this continues to be a great resource for funders in our community. We've been able to partner with the Children's Trust and other funders. We're partnering with the City of Gainesville right now as well to help organizations being able to highlight them, as well as being able to show grant opportunities and those in our community doing the work that might not otherwise have been highlighted. Last year, the Community Foundation launched our Burn the Mortgage campaign. Really, the goal was to help finish paying down the mortgage of our building here at the Community Foundation that's really used by many nonprofits in our community. And really that was a great line item on the Community Foundation that we were hoping to work with our board members and the community to get that paid down. And we're happy to say that last year in November, we were able to pay it off. You'll see Nancy and Barzella in the photo there at the bank making our final payment, thanks to our board members and donors for helping us get our mortgage paid off so that we can continue to provide services in our community, as well as this great space that many nonprofits utilize. So we do have a few questions here. And so I think Nancy's been answering some of those, but we'll get to those as well. But I wanted to talk quickly about what's coming up this year. And since we're already coming close to the end of the first quarter, and so we'll talk about what's going on currently here at the Community Foundation. So we're working with the City of Gainesville on the American Rescue Plan Act on the ARPA funding and helping distribute that. So the Community Foundation has been contracted by the city to work with them on the $7 million that was allocated to nonprofits. So the City of Gainesville received $32 million. They allocated $7 million of that for our nonprofit community. And the Community Foundation is working on making recommendations to the commission on how that funding can be used with our nonprofits. And so we do have an application open right now for nonprofits to use. We're having weekly updates on how the recommendations will work with the Community Foundation and on the application. So we definitely welcome you to visit our website if you would like more details on that. We talked about our Racial Equity Fund to help permanently support those working in social justice and racial equity in our community. We had the $10,000 match back in the fall, and we actually just are going to be launching during the Amazing Give a $25,000 match. So you'll be seeing much of that around the Amazing Give this year. And then we also have $30,000 for a new program called our Investing in Leaders of Color, which is helping those leaders of color in our community with training and one-on-one coaching. So there's more information on that on our website as well. Of course, the Amazing Give. So save the date. April 21st is our 7th giving day that we've done in our community. We are keeping the 12-hour format, so it will be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And this year we will be doing a 12-hour live stream. We're going to be doing 12 hours nonstop streaming about nonprofits and sharing the stories of the participating nonprofits and the work they do in our community. So we're looking forward to highlighting all of those more significantly than we've been able to in the past with this 12-hour live stream, working with local influencers and media personalities to really highlight the work. So that's want to stop now. I think there's been a few questions. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see everyone's faces if there are any questions. One thing we did launch this year that I didn't mention is we did launch a new online grants portal, which actually launched about 2 weeks ago. And so many of you already have profiles in there, but to streamline our grant process and really what grants are available, the Community Foundation did launch a grants portal where a nonprofit has an account and they're able to see any open grants and do all their applying for grants through one portal. And that way we're not using Jotform and Word, and you're not emailing us, and everything is in one central location where you're able to apply for grants, receive notifications about that grant and selection in there as well. So everything is streamed through that grants portal. And so we're excited to launch that. We've gotten great feedback in the last few weeks from the nonprofits using that online grants portal. So are there any questions or anybody have any questions? I think Nancy answered some questions in the chat, but Nancy, are there any questions we weren't able to answer? Feel free to unmute or use the chat.
I don't see any others in here. For those who might not be looking at the chat, Scott had a question about the loan fund, and just the terms will vary in different circumstances, but overall they are 0 interest, generally repaid within 1 year. And really they're intended to help, as Leslie was saying, with reimbursable grants where organizations may not have the cash up front. This is intended to help with that. That's all I see so far for questions.
Great. And I did want to make one quick announcement specifically about our agency funds is, and I might get Nancy off mute to talk about this, but we do your disbursements once a year, and your disbursements for 2021 will be coming up at the end of the month. So I'm going to give over to Nancy to talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. For the endowed agency funds, you may remember last year, letters went out late in the spring. We should have those amounts to you by the end of March. So that is your potential annual disbursement from the fund. That is based on the earnings from the previous 12 quarters ending December 31st of 2021, according to our spending policy. So you will receive a letter from us giving you the amount, and you can choose to take that disbursement in May. You can choose to take it in November if one or the other works better for your fiscal year, or you could choose not to take it, in which case those earnings would roll back into the principal of your fund. If you choose not to take it, it stays in the fund as the principal, but it's not available again. You couldn't 3 years from now say, hey, I'd like those 3 years of disbursements. If you want that one for this year, it would need to be taken in May or November. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I see some head nodding. So we appreciate you guys working with us last year and really trying to streamline that process. And we appreciate, I think it's been working out well. So thank you, Nancy. Do we have any questions? I see a few people may have unmuted. Oh, Robert?
Yeah, I do have a question about how those are invested, because it does appear that from the one that we have, that we know about, that we're getting roughly 6%, which is, I'm surprised, because of the low interest rates these days. And I wonder if you can shed a little light on that.
Sure. So we're going to get into our, oh, go ahead, Nancy. Nancy, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'll add on.
No, we are going to get into our investments with our investment firm, Tillman Hartley, in just a second. But I believe maybe you're talking about our spending policy, Nancy.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure, Robert, if you were looking at your fund statement and what your earnings had been. If that's the case, let's talk later, email or talk later, because that will depend on how your investment is allocated for your fund. As you all know, the fund advisors can choose the investment allocation for the fund. And so earnings may look different on the different funds. And when Ben speaks to us a little later, that'll be clear too. But if it's about your individual investments, please give us a call or email later and we can discuss that.
Thank you. Well, we'll have time for some more questions after Ben's presentation, but I want to pass it over to Ben. I know a lot of you joined the call today because you want to hear more about our investment strategy and how that investment piece works. And so the Community Foundation contracts with Tillman Hartley. They have been our investment firm since the founding of the Community Foundation. And so I'm going to pass it over to Ben Cannon and Michael Tillman to do a quick update. So Ben.
Okay, thank you. I hope to answer all of your questions. Please feel free to jump in if you have any that looks like I'm skipping over. As Leslie referenced, we've been involved with the Community Foundation since the beginning. We're honored to be a part of it. Y'all do great work, great resources for the community. Part of that is managing portfolios. We started with just the endowed portfolio and have since added a long-term endowed portfolio, which is slightly more aggressive, and a fixed income portfolio to cover short-term liquidity needs. As I referenced, there's 3 portfolios currently: the 100% fixed income portfolio, which is really short-term. We even keep the terms of the actual underlying fixed income short and high quality, so that it's really focused on preservation of principal for spending within a year or maybe 3 at most. But long term, that's likely to lose to inflation, especially as inflation picks up here. So that's really a preservation of principal sort of account there, not intended for long term investments. The endowed portfolio was the original portfolio. That is 60% globally diversified stocks. Tens of thousands of stocks, as well as high quality fixed income. We do take a little bit more risk with the fixed income in the equity portfolios, simply because they're invested for the longer term. So we're not as concerned if the fixed income piece of it goes up or down slightly with interest rates. But in general, it's very safe typically government securities to serve as that ballast in times of turbulence. And the equity piece of that is long-term oriented, globally diversified. We don't target any specific industry or strategy. We want exposure to everything, and we do have some tilts, and that's explained here. So we believe that the markets work. Markets are largely efficient, that prices you see in the market are reflective of all the information that's available to us as investors. And there are people who are paid very well to go out and try to arbitrage and make money off of inaccuracies and information. So even those people don't have proven track records often of actually outperforming the market. So why not take all of their good work and put it to our benefit by using their pricing information and just diversifying globally so that we own a piece of a lot of individual companies that are all out there to make money. And hopefully over the long term, that strategy will lead to long-term investment satisfaction. We do believe risk and return are related. So the risks that you cannot diversify away. So we can diversify away individual company risk, country risk, even currency risk to a degree. All of those you're not well compensated for, but the risks that you are well compensated for, like owning small cap companies, those we do take slightly extra risk in exposing ourselves to smaller companies, more value-oriented companies, and over long enough time horizons, those factors have been shown to lead to outperformance in portfolios. So here is just another way of showing that. It breaks it down. The risks that we are paid to embrace on the equity side and on the fixed income side, it tends to be that stocks pay more than bonds. That's just a risk of owning equity versus fixed income. So we like to take our risk on the equity side and not on the fixed income side. We feel we're better compensated for that. Like I said, small companies, the company size is a big piece of that. Small companies tend to outperform large companies because they're riskier, so investors demand a higher expected return over time. Value companies tend to outperform growth companies. I'm happy to talk about that, but that's one of the factors we invest to. And profitability, firms that have been shown to be profitable tend to outperform those that are unprofitable. It seems like a gee whiz sort of statement, but with the internet growth companies, that's not always the case. So we believe that structured investing is the way to accomplish investors' long-term goals. That's setting a plan when times are okay, or in a thoughtful manner, and then stick to that plan, not changing it based on recent market movements or what we think the dollar versus yen is going to do, or any of those metrics that you can invest around. So we don't have a story that we're investing to. We just tilt the portfolios slightly towards small companies, value companies, profitable companies, and then trust that over the long term, that strategy is going to pay off for our investors. And one of the things we can focus on is keeping costs low and transparent. So the internal fund fees have been dropping year over year, and it's been a consistent decline. Some of that is based on the adoption of ETFs versus mutual funds. We're relatively agnostic between holding mutual funds or ETFs, except if we can get lower expenses on the ETF side. But in general, even mutual funds have been decreasing their fund fees as management of the individual stocks has become more automated. So there's less hands-on time, man hours involved, so that they're able to offer those services for a little bit cheaper. But we do avoid funds with the hidden deferred sales charges, 12B1 fees, things like that. We are compensated for our best advice, and that's it. We don't get paid from any of the funds that we recommend or buy for our clients. And portfolio returns have been pretty astonishing for 2021. I don't think anybody would have thought it would be such a great year going in, but you see the risk and return relationship has played out once again, that the endowed, this is the 60% stock portfolio, was up 12.3% for 2021, whereas the long-term endowed, the 80% stock portfolio, was up 17.1% for the year. That's a really great one-year return, tempered somewhat by higher inflation numbers. There was a 7% inflation as measured by CPI. Now, I will caution that everybody throws the CPI inflation number as if that's the only number, but what really matters to individual charities are their ultimate expenses. So you can imagine Habitat for Humanity likely has a large cost of lumber, whereas a company that delivers meals to elderly individuals likely has more of a fuel cost involved. So the number here for CPI is just a basket of urban dweller goods that includes all of those things, but it's likely not going to be in the proportions that really matter to you ultimately. So focus on the inflation that matters to you. And if it really is a big expense like fuel, you can consider hedging against that potentially. We are happy to establish portfolios that have alternate strategies involved if there is enough demand for one. And like I said, hedging against oil would be one potential, but we don't see it as a long-term profitable strategy unless there's a real risk to hedge against. But continuing with that risk and return related story, you can see in 2018, those figures were reversed, where the 80-20 portfolio, this long-term endowed here, was negative 10%, whereas the safer portfolios, 60-40, the endowed was down 7.4, and then the fixed income actually rose a bit with the uncertainty there. So that's exactly what we would expect over time, is that in periods of volatility, people have this flight to quality, and quality tends to be the high quality fixed income. And just another point to that, back in 2020, when we saw the COVID related disruptions in March, some of the fixed income, even the safe fixed income that we owned, there were big disconnections in the market between what you could actually sell it for and what the underlying holdings were worth. So we really put a premium on liquidity, being able to rebalance around those assets and suffer at the hand of the market when we do so. So liquidity is high on our list of things that we're concerned about and that we pay attention to. This is just a breakdown of asset class returns for last year. This is as of the end of the year, so quarter to date is just the fourth quarter. But you can see here, real estate had just a phenomenal year, up 33%. And we could not have predicted that, but that's why diversification works, because we would not have been in real estate if not for the long-term steady targeting of that asset class. And here's that played out in graphical format, where in 2020, you can see real estate was actually the big underperformer, losing 11%. And that was due to everybody thinking that work from home was a permanent feature and that office space was going to go unused and things like that. But the story of this slide is that if you tried to pick the next outperforming asset class, there's no clear discernible pattern. So fixed income tends to be a lower expected return because it's a safer asset, but some years fixed income is a top returner. So it's not like we can tell you, next year what your returns are going to look like. But with a long enough time horizon, we can say, again, that risk and return are related. So instead of trying to guess what is going to be the profitable strategy next year, if your time horizon is long enough, then taking that additional risk and going for the long-term endowed structured portfolio, which is 80% stocks, you're going to have more risk. However, your long-term expected return is also going to be greater. So here you can see this is annualized over 10 years. The annualized, the last 10 years performance for the long-term endowed portfolio was about 10%, whereas the 60-40, the endowed portfolio, was about 7.8%, and fixed income is really just steady state, intended for short-term liquidity needs. And one new service we've offered in conjunction with the Community Foundation, I know they were offering this before, but we started processing stock gifts through a stock gift account. We love to see when our clients make donations of low basis shares. It's a wonderfully efficient way to donate. So last year in 2021, we processed $1.17 million in stock gifts. That was just from April through the end of the year. So we're excited to see what 2022 shapes up to be. And that cost basis information actually transfers over with those shares. So we were able to see that in that 1.17 million donated securities, the donors were able to avoid realizing about $750,000 of capital gains. So again, you get that dual benefit. If you're itemizing, you get to claim the gift value, and you get to avoid the capital gains versus selling and giving in cash. So this year, 2022, is off to a great start as well. Just in January, we processed $700,000 in donations so far. And all trades are commission free. We don't charge any fee on this service. We try to make the sale as quickly as possible. You'll see a slight investment gain here. That's actually, we would like to avoid any gains or losses. Obviously, we prefer gains, but if the donor can coordinate with the community foundation ahead of time, we'll know to be looking at the account multiple times that day so we can liquidate as soon as it arrives. We try to check it daily. Occasionally, something will slip in and it won't get sold until the next day. So that's where that investment gain comes from. And then the community foundation sometimes has trouble tracking down who exactly those gifts came from. So for that reason, we'd love it if you guys could coordinate with the community foundation as those gifts come in. But we love to see them, and we're happy to be able to support the community foundation through that. Any questions?
Ben, we have one in the comment here about benchmarking.
Okay. Yep. So benchmarking, these are just our, I can provide a full list of benchmarks with the percentages. Sorry here. So these are the benchmarks that we use in what's called a blended benchmark. And so if you look here, this is the composite benchmark data. This is a blend of these individual benchmarks according to the percentage that they are reflected in the investment policy statement for the community foundation. So in this long-term 80% stock, 20% fixed income portfolio, 80% of the benchmark is comprised of the stock individual indices. Now I'd have to look at the numbers to tell you exactly what the composition is, but it's typically going to be about 60% US and 40% international within that equity allocation piece. And so those benchmarks are designed really to show us how we're performing versus the underlying assets, not versus a random sort of benchmark, the S&P 500, or you can choose all sorts of benchmarks, but we try to choose a benchmark that accurately reflects the underlying assets.
Peter, please let us know if that didn't answer your question, but anybody have any additional questions for Ben? Feel free to unmute. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
Absolutely. If there's any further questions, please feel free to get in touch with us either through Leslie or Barzella, and we're happy to answer those offline as well.
Thank you. I know that if you guys have questions, we're happy to get you in touch with Ben. I know in the past we've had Ben attend a board meeting to explain some of this to your entire board. I know some of the information can be a little confusing to present on your own. So we're happy to get that scheduled if you would like that as well. Well, again, since there's no questions, I want to share one thing that we've heard from our agency fund holders this year has really, over the last 2 years, has really been a need for some additional resources, especially around growing your fund and ways that we can help you. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is a work in progress, but we'll be sharing this link with all of you here. And this is a new page on our website. It is password protected because when we share the link with all of you, we'll share it in an email after this call. We'll share the password with you, and this password will change every year. And we want to recommend that you, again, just for agency fund holders, that you only share this password with your organization. So we will release the password. I wanted to show you what it looked like. So when you come in here, this will be different from your fund portal where you see your statements. But once you're in here, you will see that we have this agency fund resources. And again, we can continue to add to this resource page on our website for our agency fund holders. But as you can see, everything's a hyperlink. So when you click on these, you'll have different resources. So I'm going to click on a few of them. I won't click on all of them, but you can get the idea. This is right here about our agency fund. It's just a flyer, details of really overview that you can send to your board or send to anyone interested in learning more. Right here, this document is for your board. And so this is what you can include in any type of onboarding for a new board member or even your current board members, that really goes into detail explaining really, it goes down to the basics. What is an endowed fund? Why is it important? And most of you on this call do have the endowed fund. And so, helps them talk about it. Like, why not make a gift directly to the organization, or why make a gift to our agency fund, and or about your specific agency fund? How is it invested? All of those questions are on here. The next one we have is endowment growth resources. We are working on this document right now. We have permission to take you over to the Council for Nonprofits on their resource page, all about endowments, but we will be working on our own endowment growth resources. This endowment calculator is something that many of you have requested, and we have been sending you to other resources. So we're excited to have this. I'm going to share this website here. This is from the Community Foundation of Broward. Our friends there are allowing us to show you this endowment calculator, but really helps you determine when you're adding to your agency fund, what that might look like. You're able to, say that you have $150,000, you have a $100,000 fund and you're adding $150,000 to it. What does your growth look like? And so we have all of this. This will be tailored to the Community Foundation and our fees and et cetera on it. And we'll be adding this endowment calculator to our website, specifically to this resource page within the next probably the next couple months, probably within the next 2 months, we'll have that added. So that endowment calculator will be coming soon for all of you to, and again, our fees and your fund information will be detailed into this calculator so that you can, it can be a true number when you're calculating. So again, there's also some common things here, distribution request form here, investment details. This is the form that Nancy was referring to that you can fill out. You can change this at any time that you need to fill this out. It talks about the different types of funds and how you can, where you can invest your fund. And again, details on all of that is after the forms. This is a lot of what been covered today. If that's something that your organization would like to look at, you can change your investment allocations if you need to. We've been getting a lot of requests for our logos. So this will take you to a Dropbox link where you can pull down any of the Community Foundation logos to use for any promotion for your fund or to add to your website. Many of you have community partner pages, and we've noticed the Community Foundation is not on them, and we are definitely one of your community partners. So we'd love for you to get our logo here and add this to your websites. Moving on, we have ways to give securities. So what Ben was talking about, the new tool that we have through Tillman Hartley. If you click here, this is just some sample ways to give, but if you are using our accounts here for any of your securities gifts, all that information is detailed in here, and how to do that gift of securities is listed here. We have some planned giving resources here, specifically what this might look like for your fund. If you have someone interested in making a planned gift for your fund or for your organization, and the Community Foundation would make sense for them, here's some information on that, as well as our statement of intent, that our planned giving statement of intent that your organization is welcome to use as well. And then finally, we just put a link here to our fund portal. So again, this is password protected, so it'll be a different password than whatever your fund information might be when you log in to see your fund statements. And again, your fund statements come out quarterly, and usually they come out about 3 to 4 weeks after the quarter closes. You receive those statements. And so again, if you start working on this page and you would like some additional resources, we can always add to it. Some suggestions have been a windfall policy sample, a frequently asked questions for investments. So anything that you've noticed that your board is asking for, we can add this here to our resource page. I know this has been a long time coming, and many of you have requested this. So we look forward to implementing this on our website and having it available for, as your boards change over, as you have new leadership in place and new staff, that you have one place that you can come to for all the details about your agency fund and what it means. So I'm going to stop sharing and see if anyone has any questions about the new resource page or any suggestions on what might could be added. So do we have any questions? Hopefully you guys will find this helpful. I know this has been requested by many of the nonprofit staff, and especially for your, the more details for your board is always requested. So we hope that you all will use that tab, and we will be sharing this link out with all of our agency fund holders after the call today, and help you share the passwords. So anyone have any additional questions? I know that we didn't want to take too much of your time today, but we have a few more minutes if anybody has any final questions for the Community Foundation or for Ben.
I would just like to say that I think that today's meeting was very informative, and I appreciate a chance to learn a lot of new stuff. The portal that you just discussed is a very, very good resource, and I know our organization will be using that. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And again, we're always open once you're in it and using it. If your board members have more questions, we will be adding to it. And we look forward to getting that endowment calculator up on our website in the next few months. Well, thank you all for being here, and we appreciate you. You know how to find us at the Community Foundation. Again, we can connect you with Tillman Hartley for any additional investment questions. Thank you for being partners with the Community Foundation. In any way we can serve you, please let us know. So we will see you all soon. So thanks, everyone.